Good evening, free enterprise fans, and welcome. We're in the playoffs, top 16 bracket stages of Highway to the Zema Zone. My name's Vitasia. I'm joined tonight by PK4787. How are we doing tonight, PK?
I'm doing pretty well. We got our draft done yesterday. We are getting kicked off, and these are two opponents who I was very grateful not to end up against. Anti and CNC, both great records in the round of 32. Both really good runners. CNC, for those maybe less familiar, is a little newer, but do not be surprised that he is here because every race I participated in against him has been very close.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, great naming scheme, CNC, CoffeeAndChocobos. Yeah, he's newer to the community, but he's absolutely just exploded onto the scene. He did fantastic at a lot of community and async races that were going on, and just blitzed his way through table state or through groups, and then that first part of tables, and now he's 6th seed overall, up against Antidale, the 9th seed. This is probably one of the most even matches that we're going to see in this first round of 16. It is a best of 3, so whoever wins tonight will have a 1-game lead. It's the first match of 3 between these two.
Yeah, and it looks like we have a nice little bunching of objectives here. Burn, miss with the package, defeat the queen, and the Baron Castle basement throne. So some of these, you look at them and you think, all right, this is going to be an hour 5 flat. This is one of those where you have 2 key items that you are going to have to track down. So this could be quick, or we could be up there on the moon trying to figure out what exactly we're doing here, because definitely not just boss hunts, or definitely not location hunts here.
Oh, absolutely. Just as a reminder to everyone, if this happens to be your first time viewing, first of all, welcome. We do have to complete 3 of the 4 objectives listed there in the middle of the screen in order to be rewarded with the crystal, which will ultimately allow us to defeat Threemus. So as we get started, remember, once you have a party member, it is non-dismissible. We are forced to start with a Yang. Oh, and there's a Quake kid to start things with.
And that is the Baron key. So while you might not have the power right now, that 4th objective is in sight. That is a very convenient thing to have, because that means we are only hunting now for the package or both pieces of those swords, of that sword, excuse me. And Quake Kid is a huge get, particularly with this Yang start, in my opinion.
Absolutely. He really only needs 1 level to come online to start getting the level 2 spells. And with that bluff ability that he has, really can pump up his damage very quickly. All things said, he's one of the top performers in this tournament, outside of course, Tella. Meanwhile, we see the runners. Looks like we're going to this is a very common start into the watery pass. The treasures here are randomized, weighted at a little bit higher weight right now. You wouldn't tell it from that charm rod, but I promise you it's good loot.
And speaking of our old man all-star, we have Atella. This is a really curious situation, actually, and we were sort of maybe discussing this earlier, but depending on who else I find for my party, Yang is someone who I'm actually likely to consider keeping down for the early part of these table flags, just because you know that you're probably going to eventually demachine. And this is when you can really get Yang online, is if you can slingshot him off of something like that. Because right now, Quack Kid's going to be doing a lot of work. Yang, not so much. Tella has the blink and the exit spells, which is nice, but a couple 100,000 XP is what you're really looking for to get that Yang going.
All right, so a bit of a divergence right here. We see Antidale go ahead and clearing out the back half, these 4 treasure chests that are in the back of the watery pass. It does look like there's some silk webs that are available in the item shop there in Kaipo. This is an easy item shop to dodge right at the moment, just because it's so far out of the way. And if you don't get it here, you're likely to dodge it entirely Meanwhile, Antidale does also find a Charm Rod. That's interesting. That's one of the better weapons that your black mages can equip.
Yeah, I like this play. I think, yeah, we'll see Coffee and Chocobos at least check these from 4. But if you can, if in that initial check you think you have enough money to make it on over to check that shop, like you said, it's kind of out of the way. But if you can route it in right then you never have to really worry about going back and wondering what's there.
So we already have a cursed ring that was available in the Damsian basement. That cursed ring is, of course, something that if you're trying to manipulate agility for whatever character you have, is just absolutely a fantastic item to have and maintain at that point in time. So really great to see Antidale. That's a location that some runners have been skipping early on, trying to shave off as much time as you can because it's not really a high probability spot, but looks like CNC is also going to go there. So we'll also have that particular ring. Interesting to see how that affects his party setup for later.
Yep, just an Edward, but with the objectives that we have, maybe we'll see an Eddie strap, but I think that Edward's probably just gonna be hanging out for the duration of this. I will be intrigued to see who else we see the runners take, because you sort of have one physical and one magic character right now, and I don't know if you have a preference, Fantasia, but do you prefer Zerkers, or would you be trying to get 3 mages to go for those eventual reflect strats on Zeromus?
Honestly, I would probably be leaning towards reflect strats, in part because we still don't have a decent white mage. And, more often than not, we're seeing Porum show up over Rosa, which, Rosa is always Bay, but you got to take what the seed gives you. And doing reflect strats, if you have the preference, means that you don't have to grind up quite as high as you would need to if you have a suboptimal party at that point in time. I get that we have Yang, and we really have to see what else is out there right now, but right now that's kind of the way I'm leaning for this, but we got to see what else. We still have the Mysidia characters, we still have the characters up on Mount Ordeals that we have to check. Still a lot of race to run, and I really would like to see what else is available out there. We did see a Cid on top of Mount Hobbs, which would be nice. He's great early game, but I feel like we're already 3 party members in. That would really commit us one way.
Yeah, that is the interesting thing about something like a Yang start, is you wouldn't typically take a Yang early. So taking someone like that Cid as your 4th character, you might think about taking that Cid if you didn't already have, Yang, for example, in your party, but Cid is your 4th character, you're starting to run out of room very quickly, and then those reflect strats are starting to disappear if you're only going to end up with 2 mages.
All right, so Coffee and Chocobos is now going to show us who the Mysidia characters are, while Antidale is showing us the rest of the item shops. And hey, would you like double Quake Kids? And a white mage as well.
Oh, this is a very curious decision now, potentially for Coffee and Chocobos. You mentioned, 1 level will get the Palums online. 0 levels, if you have 2 Palums, actually gets the Palums pretty well online as well for the early game.
Yeah, and it did look like he took the second Palum, but opted not to take the Porum quite yet. Going out on a limb, just hoping that there might be something else available on Mount Ordeals. Something interesting, we did see Poison Claws available in the Mysidia shop. Poison Claws are Yang's 2nd best weapon and do give a plus strength bonus, so it's not the elemental bonuses that you try to hope for, like his Thunder Claw, but for pure damage, only the Cat Claw is better.
Yeah, and given that the Poison Claws, you can purchase them for about 3,000 a pop, and they give plus 3 strength. The Cat Claw plus 5 strength, and I believe 25,000 is... You're getting a lot more bang for the buck out of those Poison Claws. But I think, at least for the time being, we are going to be seeing the Twin Spell cast quite a few times to get this seed rolling.
Yeah, and thank you, chat, for correcting me. He didn't take the second Palom. He actually took Porum. So he, again, if he's looking for reflex traps, might be running around getting this going and then slingshotting his second Palom. Now, slingshotting is kind of an interesting thing that we'll get into a little bit later once we finally do our grinds, but I got to imagine that's what he's going for. He knows what his party is going to do. He just didn't want to have to kill something. And we have an early Kaipo guards fight in the Antline Cave. Not sure if this is exactly what we wanted to see here.
Well, free fights are always free fights. Typically, you would prefer that this was in a more difficult location, just so that you don't have to face some terrible boss, maybe at the Queen at the Town of Monsters spot that is going to be required here, or somewhere like the Barren Basement. But that is the beginning of, if you saw, we saw a bluff into the Twin Cast, and that is going to make very short work of pretty much everyone in this early game.
It finds the hook. Now, I mean, that's technically underground access. It's not the way we want to get into the underground, but it is technically underground access. It'll be interesting to see if CNC immediately dives into that. Antidale was a little bit more thorough in terms of clearing out everything that was in the Antline Cave, and did find, for example, a rune ring, which again is one of the few rings that will help your black mages out in terms of increasing the damage. So Antidale being slightly more thorough is really finding, I think, a few pieces of equipment that's going to help him long term.
Yeah, the rune ring is, basically in a similar tier to something like the crystal ring, plus it adds bonuses to wisdom and willpower, mage resistance. But I would say, given what we've seen so far, they're both in a very similar position. But I don't think I'm going underground at least completing ordeals. I think maybe if one of them is feeling spicy, we might see them skip something like the Barren Inn or doing Barren Castle, but that hook is not the path underground that you were hoping for, ideally.
No, in fact, we're going to go ahead and see Coffee and Chocobos now setting up, going ahead and doing Fabul. This is often a place that people end up skipping, trying to double dip into checking Sheila, for example. But CNC is going to go ahead and start that. Meanwhile, Antidale is right outside Mount Ordeals, looking like he's going to take advantage of doing something a little bit spicy there as well. He might be skipping it.
So there is one chest in there, and there is a Chocobo who will re-heal up your MP. And that is a spicy little play. I missed what's going on over there, though.
That was a Wyvern attacking Fabul with his Mega Nuke, and it doesn't matter what level a Mega Nuke is. A Mega Nuke's a Mega Nuke. Oh my god! And a third Palom.
Well, there's no shortage of twins here. And there are actually, I'm not sure with this party or what we see on the throne and at the queen spot, but there are some very hilarious Threemus strats that you can pull off with a triple Palom party, actually.
Coffee and Chocobos is going to tackle this Wyvern again, turn down his battle speed to be able to try to get off one of these Star Veils at this point. All you need is one off to be able to help. Looks like trying to also get one off on his Porum as well. Meanwhile, Antidale finds the Alt Gauntlet in the first spot. Oh, this is a horrible spot for the Alt Gauntlet.
Actually, this is Anti's just taking a random encounter.
Okay.
Picked up these bombs. A majority of the enemies up here on Ordeals are going to be weak to fire. Fire mixed with that ice too. And these are relatively safe fights that you can take. If you have two Paloms, if you can get them to that virus spell as quickly as possible, that's going to make the rest of these overworld checks a lot more convenient.
Meanwhile, Coffee and Chocobos does get past the Wyvern spot, is rewarded with none other than, a fabulous rune axe. Not what he was hoping for there.
given the party, that might just end up being a nice little chunk of money. I did see CNC sell off one, the Leviathan, which makes me happy personally as someone who thinks that it's more valuable being sold than it is necessarily equipping and carrying a mid-level Rydia around with. I definitely think that's open to some interpretation. But if you're not going to have any physical attackers on your team, then that Rune Axe isn't doing you too much.
I'm right there with you. Honestly, I really enjoy selling off the summons when we get them because they are a good chunk of change. Absolutely. Meanwhile, Antidale has ground up to the point where he's happy. Finds the Magus sisters here. Oh boy.
This is sort of an interesting fight here, particularly with that little grind that we saw from Anti. When they have the chance to get that wall up, you will be able to attack two of the sisters, but your magic attacks are not going to hit that center sister, and the magic attack power here is actually pretty decent. The physical attack here is pretty atrocious, but as far as magic goes, those spells are going to do just enough damage to be dangerous.
Oof. 2 characters down very, very quickly. Does get Mindy down, who has the lowest HP of the 3. But this is going to be a little bit difficult for this party. Yeah, when you're setting up magic at this point, yeah, Antidale resets out.
So Virus might actually be something you would consider on a play like this. Also, just to point out, CNC took, I believe that's now, his naming scheme is throwing me off when I try to figure out who is who. We have 2 Palams, a Porum, a Yang, and a Tella, so CNC is locked in.
Yep. I mean, it looks like he's setting up for Reflect strats, which is perfectly fine. Antidale looks like he's going to grind up a little bit more, trying to get some of those higher level spells.
Yeah, Virus would make those sisters a little bit easier. The bonus cast time on the level 2 spells is part of what I think his issue was there on that fight. As well as you will be able to reflect the Virus casts off, say, the second wall that Sandy throws out, the one that gets reflected onto your own team. But you really need spells that go off fast, and the tier 1 spells aren't going to be strong enough, and the tier 2 spells might just take too much time for that type of strat to work.
Meanwhile, this back attack is really playing havoc on Antidale right now, unfortunately. And of course, in this seed, you cannot run away, so you have to deal with whatever comes at you.
Yep, and Bearbus in chat pointing out, if there's some brute hook bosses, this is one of the things with locking yourself into a pure mage team this early. Granted, this might be a choice I would have made as well in a similar situation, but bosses like Ogopogo, bosses that put up walls, bosses that have counters, there could be some mean hook bosses that can gate the underground access. And of course, if we do happen to run into a required Valvalis somewhere, might be heavily reliant on that Yang.
Yeah, but man, when the game just hands you 3 Palams, it's telling you what it wants you to do. Like, what else are you supposed to do with 3 Palams, right?
Oh, I'm not arguing with that. I would have at least 2 Palams on my team, just because. I mean, come on. I take 1 Palam whenever I find them, but I do like potentially seeing Antidale's play here. The amount of time it's going to take you to get up to Virus could very well be the same amount of time that we're going to see CoffeeAndChocobos spend trying to sort of brute force with this twin spell that's going to get reflected back on one of your party members. This is just an example of why aiming for that heavily mage party, particularly early on, can come back and bite you in free enterprise.
I can't help but think that Antidale also picking up some slightly superior rods for his double Black Mage team, in addition to the levels, and there's Virus for both of them. I got to imagine that's going to end up helping out as well. I mean, we look over at CoffeeAndChocobos, in addition to being slightly lower level, they're just not putting out the damage that is really going to be needed to get through much of this without, we see that remedy that pulls Mindy right back up. I just don't know if he has the damage to get through this right now.
It's going to be tough. The downside of those level 2 spells, as I said, is their cast time is an ATB tick or 2 longer than something like Virus, which is obviously doing bonus damage. Another reason I like this play from Antidale is you have that Baron key in hand. So if this is me, I'm plotting on at least completing Baron Castle and peeking that boss on the Baron Throne before taking that hook route. And Virus is going to get you through all of that much, much faster.
Oh yeah, and Antidale is just melting bosses here.
And with the proper setup, you can even get, if you get that first Virus cast off before that Star Veil even goes off, now there you go. You don't have to deal with any of their script. You get one punch from Cindy, and then you are through.
Yeah, very heads-up play by Antidale. Instead of trying to brute force things, as we see CoffeeAndChocobos here, not that he won't eventually get through it. CoffeeAndChocobos is a fantastic runner, but sometimes taking a step back and being like, hey, let's get some levels, makes it a whole lot easier. Meanwhile, free fight, anyone?
That looks pretty free to me. Fortunately, not that all gauntlet that you had brought up. After taking that many fights already there, I'm sure you don't want to see that many more random encounters. Although, I believe Antidale accidentally turned encounters on, thinking that he was turning them off. So I am interested in seeing when that pops up, because again, you can't run. So when you find that out, you only have 2 options, and that's fight or reset to something.
Oh, and we have the crumble animation. This is the worst. Crumble animation for a water hag, folks. Ugh.
Now, there is the question of if CNC can get through this fight successfully. While it's not an ideal situation, you are actually getting a bonus 66% experience, I believe, for each iteration of Sandy and Mindy that we saw CNC break down. So there is the potential, if everyone's up, that this will, sort of get CNC a similar number of levels to what we saw Antidale get from those random encounters.
Meanwhile, another free fight, Dark Imps. All of our free fights are early on. This is horrible.
Oh, with fights like these, it makes you hope for something on the Baron Basement Throne and something at the Queen of the Town of Monsters that is going to give these mage parties a little more difficulty.
Meanwhile, we did pick up the Rat Tail at the top of Mount Ordeals, which is handy since we already have the hook. Might as well get that out of the way. I know we're in the pink tail quadrant of the brackets, but right now I would be tempted to just abandon whatever we might find at the pink tail and just say, nah, we'll get our turn-ins now.
Yeah, that is a freebie. I did want to point out that Antidale embraced the color screen, or the color scheme for the menuing. So you will notice as Antidale accidentally finds, actually this is a great encounter to get. But he is rocking his pink tail pink, so bonus points to Antidale for embracing that. If Flurry is here, you will be using the Michigan State green when we play tomorrow, so bear that in mind.
Is that something that you dictated to people that you drafted? It's like, look, we're Earth Crystal. We are green.
Yeah, there you are. I knew you were here, Flurry. I see you. I did make that point. It's been something, you know, that out of tradition in the previous Threemus zones, you sort of embrace some sort of scheme along those lines. And yeah, Scala did an amazing job locating the color for the number of times I played around with trying to fix the colors in this game. You know, like, where am I going to find it? Like, Scala is like, can you do Michigan State green? Scala's like, yeah. And then 20 seconds later, it was right there. It's like, okay, great work. So CNC got through, did get some good levels off of that fight. But is going to be one or two boss fights behind Anti at this point.
Well, keep in mind that CNC did go ahead and he had the completion of doing the Fabul defend check. So he's done at least one more check above Antidale, who did a little bit of grinding and then set up for everything. So the difference is a little bit smaller than what we're seeing. Oh, hey, I mean, we got to keep it. Yay.
This is, I don't know, one of the other racers in Venerable. I don't know if Antidale saw those poison claws or what, how much money Antidale is working with right now. So it might be something to keep your eye on, whether you think it's worth keeping that cat claw, because in a pinch, it's a good 13,000 gold that you can keep lying around.
I mean, I like it. I really enjoy the cat claw, but yeah, it's a lot of money for something that doesn't increase his damage output all that much. We have another lost and lonely child having dinner with an old man. Ooh, let's save Rydia.
Well, we have the Leviathan summon. Leviathan's here guarding the person who could use the Leviathan summon. Although, once again, if I have Virus on two Palums, I don't think I'm that excited for seeing this Rydia, but I do think we might see Antidale dismiss Rydia here, because she is another one of those who is great once they have gotten, 1.1 million XP, but in the meantime, aren't exactly the person you want to keep around.
French vanilla guards as well. Oof.
And I was going to say, after we saw the Dark Imps fight up there, that was our only free fight really remaining. And there's that one.
Yeah, those guards are hardly free. I mean, they don't have the boss bit, so if you were to, use stone on Tella instead of him taking a dirt nap, then you would be able to get through that pretty quickly. Also, casting mute on them, for example, if you happen to have any mute bells, really renders all of their counterattacks almost useless. But yeah, it's amazing to see all of the bosses that don't have the boss bit just immediately in the overworld. I think the only quote-unquote free fight that we haven't seen yet is King and Queen Evelyn.
Yep, that's all that's left on my list at this point. I will say, I think Antidale shifted sort of the character positioning. You actually want a fast anchor going into that spot, so we have Yang in the middle now. I believe Palom was actually maybe in the front row there, but the Palom with the Rune Ring in the back row should, potentially be safe. And we do have the Toad spell as well. So, I'm sorry, brief roadblock, but I think, yeah, now that you know what you're up against, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, all of a sudden, everything that those cards might throw at you is bad. So we're just going to tear these cards a new one, get right through it. Again, the trick is knowing what you're up against and setting up your party for it. Antidale set up perfectly fine. I don't think that blink was even necessarily needed, because these guys are going to fall over pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would say they're probably on the verge of croaking.
Ooh, boo.
So, Vatasia, you have as many Palums as you want. You have Atella. You've done ordeals. Would you do the hook route here, or are you gonna go and take care of these the Baron checks as well?
Honestly, like I'm looking at the percentage chance that the magma key could possibly be in Baron. Now, it's something that we're eventually going to have to do anyway, so I don't think there's necessarily a downside to at least clearing the first part of Baron right now anyway. On the off chance that the magma key is hiding behind the king spot, I think I would go ahead and clear it. I'm not optimistic. If we didn't have to clear through Baron anyway to get to that Baron Castle basement throne, if that wasn't an objective, I'd say dive hook right away. But because it is, I'm tempted to go ahead and dive it, and that does look like Antidale is going to go ahead and do it.
Yep, I'm with you there, particularly with that potentially required throne. I would be curious. I'm trying to think if there's a character that I would be interested in taking right now. But I think until we see those hook bosses, if I'm Antidale, I'm not in any rush because that is another character check. And depending on what bosses we run up against, you still might want some sort of physical attacking character. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
That said, Antidale does not have a white mage yet. So, if it's a Rosa, I'm taking a Rosa.
Good point. I agree with you there. I would take a Rosa too.
I'm like, I need a healer. I'm not too comfortable right now.
This is nice. If there is if there are anti-mage types, if you think of Ogopogo, ones who have counter scripts for spells, Antlion is the anti-physical boss. So if there is a party that you want to be able to just virus a boss down, Antlion's pretty good at that.
Yeah, this is a fantastic boss selection. And I honestly think at this point, once Antidale, I don't quite know what CNC's levels are at, but I think once Antidale gets through at least the king spot, I think he'll have the levels and he'll be able to have Quake.
It might be cutting it close. I would say, this isn't the ideal party for something like the Mad Ogres, but with the bonus XP and everything else, I would say at least the Mad Ogres would be enough to get you Quake. You wouldn't have to do fights in, Castle Eblin or anything on top of that. But we'll see if you're right here pretty soon. We've seen Wyvern, so I'm not as afraid of this fight when we saw that sparkle.
Yeah, Plague isn't fantastic, but I think he's got the DPS to be able to go through here. He's going to virus down his Tella just in case.
Yeah, when you're in the top 16 and everything is on the line, I don't think you want to do the old let's YOLO Plague and see if we can get enough damage off before the count runs down the first time. Granted, I have definitely done that in a lot of seeds where there wasn't anything on the line, and I'm in my head, this is a 50-50 if you just virus with everybody, if you would actually defeat Plague here.
Yeah, it's tough, and I don't know, because he's getting to the point. Yeah, he's at the point of no return at this point. He's got a virus till his heart's content. But there's the shake and the crumble.
Yep, and it looks like CNC I had seen got the mute off on the guards, but did not have enough DPS to knock them down. This is one of those really heavy physical spots, and these guards are not to be taken lightly here, particularly, well, we're seeing stops coming out, so if you don't have anything that can really play with the fact that the boss bit is missing, or you don't have great mage defense, you are going to take a lot of punches.
And it's amazing. It's just a couple levels between Virus and Toad. And that's how we saw Antidale deal with it, casting Toad on the guards. Meanwhile, Stop is a single cast, so just a couple levels make such a huge difference at this point in time. On the other side, Antidale finds our favorite bard.
We've already seen one Eddie, so I guess, I mean, do you prefer your Eddies from the Broken Down Castle or Castle Baron Bard Eddie?
I mean, Vanilla Eddie is always disappointing. So if I had to choose between Vanilla Eddie and Other Eddie, I'll go Other Eddie.
And this is a really interesting check as well. I'm a big fan of taking this check. I lost some pickup races periodically to saying there's no way I can beat anybody here. But there are one or two bosses that this party could get through. The one that immediately comes to mind is actually Bahamut.
Bahamut would be almost free at this point in time, but I don't know what we're going to see here. Oh no, that's not something. Nope.
Yep, Berserk and Chat Dolls with Quake and decent RNG on those punches. I think you'd be able to defeat the Dolls. It's one of those where, your party feels like early game, so it doesn't always feel like the right thing to do, but that little bit of information, is something that you're going to carry with you for the rest of the seed.
Wait, you guys saw Dolls? I thought it was Mom Bomb.
No, it was Mom Bomb. Berserk was pointing out Dolls might be a free fight.
Okay, I was like,
a fight that party could get through.
Am I blind? What?
No, Mother Bomb there is going to hit hard. It's going to hit fast. And even post that explode phase, you're still going to have damage to do. And you might not even have the health to survive that explode phase if you somehow manage to get through 19, 20, whatever thousand hit points that has base.
Meanwhile, Antidale sees the Wyvern and was able to get one Star Veil off immediately. He's trying to get everything else off. Reflecting the virus, that's very good strategy right there.
Yep, and CNC pretty close on anti-seals now. Through the guards fight. And it is looking, given all the information we have, like we are headed down the hook route right now.
One thing that's worth noting is that the intended route into the underworld cannot be blocked by 3 different characters. It cannot be blocked by Wyvern, so we already knew whatever was there. It cannot be blocked by Volvalas, which is fantastic for this party setup, frankly. And it cannot be blocked by Golbez. So if we have already seen the Wyvern, but if we end up on our way into the underground, if we see a Volvalas or a Golbez, we're going to see these guys nope immediately out and start a demist hunt. Until then, though, I mean, we know that we're probably not going to find a Volvalas on our way down there, which is fantastic news for this particular party.
Yeah, we did see that Evil Wall up guarding Sid as well, and all things considered, with a more squishy party, knowing that Evil Wall isn't going to be blocking your way is an okay feeling, but there's still plenty of rudeness that could await, and at this point as well, just if there's anyone that you would like to blame, Moonblaze Wolf, one of our phenomenal runners of this game, is our restreamer tonight, so feel free, well, more for Anti and CNC, they can blame Moonblaze Wolf. I'm going to cheer Moonblaze Wolf if we get a mean hook route here.
I mean, the fact that one of our required objectives at this point in time is to defeat the Baron Castle Basement Throne, and it is Mom Bomb. Mom Bomb that's probably one of the worst characters to fight there, because it is a very fast spot. Mom Bomb can hit like a truck there, no matter what your levels are at. It's going to be tough to get through that, even after a grind.
Yep. Great work, Antidale, purchasing a Thunderclaw. So Antidale now with a dramatic lead if CNC does not pick up that Thunderclaw. But those, I mean, that Mom Bomb fight, if I see that and I'm in this race with this party, I am saying, unless that is guaranteed to be gating the Darkness Crystal, I am not doing that fight until I have completed D-Machine Grind.
Absolutely. Now, I imagine CNC is going to be doing something very similar to what Antidale did to check that here directly. Antidale dodging all of these treasure chests right now. There is some good loot that's available here, but at the same time, you kind of want to dodge this fight if you can. Oh.
So have we seen either Rubicante or Elements yet?
We have not. So we don't know if that's leg or fake leg.
Well, Auntie, you might want an Ice Claw too. Thunderclaw is great, just not for that specific fight. If that is the vanilla Rubicante, this could be a relatively rude fight. You know, is weak to the ice spells, but you have to time them correctly, and you don't want to do too many physical attacks with the party with this low HP as well.
No, absolutely not. It does look like Antidale set himself up. He put the Elven Bow and Charm Arrows on one of his Palom, which means he's probably going to be opening up treasure chests to try to find this this Bad Ogre chest, but he's skipping chests, so maybe not. I don't know.
You will have to see. Chat had said, I wasn't sure if you were paying attention, Vitasia, if those Paloms both got Quake, if one got Quake. Because Quake is great against, is going to be great. Quake Virus, you don't have to worry about the absorption.
Yeah, one's at level 24, one's at level 23. So I think, yeah, one of them's short.
So I do think probably we will see a peak of the Vanilla King Queen spot first, just to see what it is that we're dealing with there. However, depending on how rude and how the RNG works against that Ruby, you might be thinking that you're keeping the Mad Ogre's chest as a potential backup.
Oh well, I'm corrected. I thought it was 24 that he learned it, but no, I guess 23 is when he learns it. So both of them should have Quake. Meanwhile, Odin, this is kind of a rude spot for Odin to be at.
Well, Antidale did purchase something of immense power that I think probably gets you through this.
That Thunderclaw. I mean, Odin quad damage to Thunder. So yeah, throw a Zerk on Yang and let him do work.
Yep, and there aren't too many hit points here where I think any one party member going down would necessarily cost this fight if both of them have Quake. So that could have been a lot more rude. This is going to be an interesting question, because at the end of each phase, before going into the Cape, we are going to see the spell come out that is essentially going to wipe down one of your party members. So the RNG on that could be interesting, depending on how fast, relatively speaking, this Ruby moves, if this is Rubicante.
All right, so here is our answer while CoffeeAndChocobos is doing his shopping, and it is a vanilla Rubicante.
So it is leg time.
Man, he moves so fast.
Yeah, this is the fear that Glare spell is going to essentially wipe one member of your team. That punch, fortunately, was just barely not enough. But it's a lot of damage that you have to get out with a team that with spellcasting and the powers, you're really not jamming the Q. So it's not going to be... It's winnable, I think, in most situations. It's just you got to be patient with it, because trying to queue up too many things could set you, down 2 characters, and then you're playing from behind.
Meanwhile, yeah, another glare takedown for his Young. His Young also is currently equipped with what appears to be an Ice Claw as well. Antidale smartly purchasing all the claws that you need, just in case.
And having shown off the leg, is now feeling a little self-conscious, going to inspect the leg in the mirror that Ruby keeps in the cape to make sure it is up to standard. Punch 2 times, and then eventually show again. So these blinks are really nice to keep everyone up. You are going to die, whoever gets hit by that glare spell.
Oh, mistimed an ice too. That's unfortunate. Get a heal off. Doubles.
And that is one of the dangers of particularly going for those ice 2s. Any elemental spell, you want leg showing whenever you cast the ice. You will get bonus damage off of it, but it's a much more easily timed thing if you have someone like a berserker, or if you're casting things with a better cast time. Because Ruby sometimes just gets a little self-conscious, likes to hide a little longer than you think.
Yeah, you gotta tease the crowd, show them a little bit of leg, then cover it back up, get them riled up a little bit. That's what I'm always told works, I think.
Little skin
to tease them.
Little calf. But good job, Antidale, through that first try. I think you always try to take a swing or two with those ice 2s. You can't be blamed for hoping that you time that right, because if those do hit, they hit for a lot more than they heal for. But 45 minutes, almost on the nose. Pitfall, and Antidale's underground.
Meanwhile, CoffeeAndChocobos is opting to open up the Mad Ogre chest, hoping to get some extra experience. Minis all of them, so that they're no longer quite the danger that they once were.
Yeah, they're just tiny little guys now. I like that they're kind of holding their fists up in the air when in this position. I think it's adorable.
It's a very come at me, brah, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know we have some new viewers in our channel tonight, based on what I've been told, but it looks like CoffeeAndChocobos is casting life on a bunch of dead enemies. Can you explain to us what exactly he's doing there?
So, in all of its brilliance, and this was all planned clearly by the creators of Final Fantasy IV, that we would discover and then utilize this, the formula for reviving anyone is based on their vitality. So if you ever end up with a curse ring character who has 0 vitality and you go to attempt to revive them, they actually stay dead even though the life potion lands. And this is essentially what you can do to enemies. You can heal enemies if you want as well, but by lifing up an enemy just after the death animation, you essentially revive and kill them, and you get double the XP for each individual one that you cast that on. So that is our life glitch. And it is a very important thing that I think we'll see a little bit more of at some point in these runs, because this is how you cut down the amount of time you need to get the levels that you're going to need to get to the end game.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Antidale finds the spoon in the rat tail chest. Meanwhile, at the queen spot, Dr. Luge at the queen spot. Not bad, honestly, all things said. He'll still hit hard, but you have a lightning weakness that you can exploit.
Well, you have actually, I think it's a machine weakness that you can exploit. All things considered, though, and I think we're going to see this, if you've been watching some of this tournament, I don't think it's come up too much. So the Thunderclaw will do bonus damage, but the second round of Dr. Luge is actually entirely free as long as you have a Starveil up on one of your characters.
Oh, really?
So everything that Dr. Luge does in the second round can either be reflected or one form of the laser just disappears. So I think we'll see 2 Quacks to open this, and then in the second round, depending on how much damage is going off, we might just see a Starveil on either the Yang or one of the Palums, and that might be the way to get through it.
Trying to get some double quakes off, trying to get enough damage rolling to where we don't have to start worrying about Balnab really attacking. And yeah, Luge is already down.
Yep.
Wow.
And Balnab has that machine weakness, so that Thunderclaw is going to do bonus damage for whatever reason. The weird. Yep, Luge transformation is also considered a machine, even though it doesn't really look like a machine to me, does it?
It doesn't in this version of the game, but if you played the DS remake when they updated everything, it's more of a robotic skeleton. So it looks a little bit like a machine. So, yeah, clearly they intended it to be.
But we did see the Starveil go off, so we'll see if the spells actually hit. But if you keep an eye on that top Palom, you will notice that something like that beam, the laser we're about to see, will reflect off or magically vanish. But also, Yang with the Thunderclaw hitting for 5k can get through that pretty quickly as well.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, wow. Required Queen at Town of Monsters. And at 49 minutes and 50 seconds, roughly, we have our first objective officially down. Defeat the Queen at the Town of Monsters. So, great down. Plus, we also have the Legend Sword, which means that was absolutely unavoidable. Either way you get there.
Yep, and taking a look, was this the spoon that was in the free chest in the Fey March?
Yes, it was.
Or the Land of Summon Monsters? Oh, and welcome to everyone from RPG Limit Break. Hopefully that was a fun race. Hopefully we can avoid spoilers, because I'm interested in potentially watching that one back. I caught the first bit of it, but welcome on over. Where partway through, an interesting hook route, and Antidale going after this Asura. What do you think of this, Vitasia?
The Asura fight is one that, if you manipulate it properly into making sure that she only is casting life on herself, you can do pretty well. I don't know. It's any fight that has predictable mechanics like this, I think, are fights that you can cheese in some capacity. So I look forward to seeing exactly what Antidale does here, because is on the life head now. So
no. If I had to guess, and seeing as according to chat, Anti and I 15 minutes apart actually know exactly what the other one's going to do, which is why I didn't draft Antidale to face me. But if you bluff up the Quakes, you get some blinks up, it's going to take probably 5 to 6 Quakes, I would say, as opposed to going for the lifelock. I thought maybe you would just cast Wall with Tella, but that's probably not going to last long enough. Or, this is clever. You're just going to, if you reflect the viruses, you never actually have to eat a punch.
One of the many interesting things about this wonderful early 90s Super Nintendo programming, any counter script that any enemy has can be completely dodged by reflected attack.
Yeah, reflecting these for about 2,000 apiece is going to come down to a question of patience, though, because those quakes with that double bluff are probably going to be hitting for about five-ish thousand, but you can't reflect those. There's 32, 34. There's a good amount of hit points here. So this is the more patient approach, and Antidale may be more comfortable with the more patient approach. I myself am much more pro the YOLO approach.
Worth noting to everyone in chat that PK, my fellow co-commentator, is, of course, the third-ranked seed on the opposite side of these guys, so he's taking notes, just let you know.
But I do find this as an interesting choice. We'll see. This would be something I would be surprised if we also see Coffee and Chocobos take care of this first dip down. Just because this is going to be a longer fight than some of the checks that are currently available to Antidale. And speaking of which, CNC is now down, so we'll get to see what routing decisions are in store for him. Basically down by that Luge fight and half of this Asura fight, but got through that Rubicante admirably, and we still are very close here.
Meanwhile, Antidale did have one Palom take a back to the face, plus that Star Veil wore off. Things are getting a little tight.
Yep, and you do not want that Asura's wall to wear off. You are staring at that wall very intently right now, hoping that that stays up for whatever damage you think you have left to do.
At this point, and it feels like he's YOLOing instead of trying to reset everything up. He gets through. Ooh. Man, he was tightening himself up as he was getting through there. But man, very well done by Antidale. Oh. Interesting.
Yeah, that is a tough call to make at this juncture in the seed. It's two character checks that outside of perhaps a Rosa, I don't think you're that interested in. But it is a long check to make if what you want is a key item out of it.
Well, and here's the deal. If we have the pass, so we have our access to Zero Miss if we absolutely need to. But other than that, we're only one key item away from go mode. We know that we can beat, or we can get to the Baron Castle. We have number 3 down. We need either the package or the adamant. What would get spicy is if we find either of those things before we find the Darkness Crystal. Because the whole point of having Tella is you can do that D-Machine grind, but you have to get to the Giant of Babel to do that, and that requires the Darkness Crystal. No Darkness Crystal, no D-Machine grind, Tella becomes less than ideal.
Well, AT still has room for an Edward. Worst case situation, I don't think Antidale wants to, because I can speak from experience. Doing Edward strats in a 1v1 in a tournament is not a fun mental space to be in for 17 to 25 minutes. But we'll have to see what checks you make, but that is a good point. Package go mode, Antidale would not have to hunt for the Darkness Crystal necessarily, and is in a better position, I think, to get through Zeromus with that open spot.
Alright, so we're doing our Sheila 1 check, just touching base, being like, hey, your husband's hanging out in the underground. Oh, there's our Darkness Crystal, darn. All of that speculation out the door now.
So We have moon access. We have one piece of the sword. We are one of 2 items from Go mode, and our grind is now officially on the table. So CNC almost done with this Dr. Luge fight. That Earth Crystal is now going to hang sort of maybe over Antidale's head, because if Antidale makes that check and it pays out, then great. I think Antidale has a big lead. If Antidale makes that Earth Crystal check and it doesn't pay, then I think DNC is nearly right back to even with Antidale. But I think we're going to see a grind here.
I suspect as much. It looks, yeah, setting everything up properly. Yeah, getting everything positioned just so for exactly how he wants to have it set up. Yeah, it looks like there's a grind coming. Or he fooled us all and is going to try for that mom bomb.
Oh, this is very spicy. Pancras, there's mom bomb in the basement.
So Antidale is showing off his huevos rancheros right now. Really taking a shot at this mom bomb. It's going to hit really hard. This should be interesting.
Yeah, I was curious. This is one of those fights. Okay, so Antidale picked up illusions, which are a nice thing to have. That is going to allow you to essentially cast Blink on yourself. The question, I guess, is going to be the damage output. I was thinking if Antidale found something like a Moonveil that we had missed, then this would be, a free fight.
We do have that hourglass, so that after Mom Bomb explodes, we could theoretically stop everything, although a Quake should take care of the bombs at that point in time. But, oof.
Yeah, that Mom Bomb is punching fast and punching hard, but we'll see. I mean, Antidale certainly, is an experienced enough runner to want to make this play. This is also one of these positions where in a 1v1, anytime you take a wipe to somebody who's made it this far in the tournament, anytime, you have to reset if those Magus Sisters on ordeals, you don't really know how far ahead or behind your opponent is. And given how good both of these runners are, any mistake, you might feel behind, you might feel you want to make some play like this, it might give you an advantage. Because if Antidale can get through this, you might not have to grind, because you would, essentially, if you get the package here, you would be done and you could go in with different strats than, needing to do that full D-Machine grind.
I think what's most impressive to me up to this point in time is Antidale has done all of this without a prototypical White Mage. Like, Tella's, I don't think, has even tossed a single heal. He'll be able to slingshot whatever White Mage he chooses once he finds one. Porum is available back in Mysidia if we so desire. Coffee and Chocobos opted to pick up Porum immediately.
Yep, there's a moon character that we have not peeked at yet. And interestingly enough, Coffee and Chocobos also going after this Asura.
When you can do it. Oh, wow, they got through that. Oh, wow, Antidale. All for a glass helmet, but more importantly, that's the second objective complete. So, I mean, the rule, if you can do them, for this tournament has always been, if you can do your objectives, do them first before you do any more searching, because you never know where they're going to lead. Oh, hey, there's some money and a Lilith Rod, which is fantastic for his Porum pals. Or pal and pals.
So Antidale wraps up number 4. If that had been, you know, the other piece of Go Mode, one of those two, the Adamant or the package, I think Antidale would have gotten some potential bonus, or we might have seen some interesting Z strats. Having not received that, I think now we're going to see a grind. And, you know, I don't think it would have hurt Antidale that too much for that in time, but once you have Quake on, or once you have Nuke on both of those Palins, that Mom Bomb's not going to be too big of a deal either.
Absolutely not. So Antidale is setting up the D Machine grind at this point in time, and looks like he's already got it set up, honestly. How you set this up is it's not really RNG manipulation so much as determining what random encounter table we are on. The community, in all their infinite wisdom, between a couple folks in the community, I think Simbu and Twisted Flax were the two who put it all together, set up effectively an encounter table. Now, you can't run away from anything, so you always start out outside Baron with easy fights. And then you count your steps, double check the encounter table, and you can set it up to guarantee the D Machine Searcher fight in the Giant of Babel whenever you're ready for it.
Yeah, the vanilla game, it basically uses a random roll of different seeds that all have their encounter rate already set. So what you're doing there is you're trying to figure out which one of those step tables you're on. Once you know, then you can see if it's one where you're going to be able to get that fight. CoffeeAndChocobos, now also done with the Fey March. Will be interested to see when that Earth Crystal routes in, when that Sheila check routes in. And, you know, maybe may pick up a little bit of time if we see him wait until after the grind to take on that Mom Bomb. But the way Antidale got through that, you know, you're not saving too much time over that fight right there.
Oh, and look at this. He's picking up a third Palom instead of a White Mage. This is where you definitely can tell that Antidale has feels the pressure of this tournament. You know, CoffeeAndChocobos is a fantastic runner in his own right. This is trying to edge out every just percent of DPS you can possibly get through between big bangs on Threemus. I like the call. I'm worried about him because if he wipes, I mean, he's stuck at this point in time.
You know, this is probably the choice, given the characters available, that I would make too. I mean, who needs heals when you can just go on BS3 at the moon and just queue up 3 straight nukes? I think knowing that you have the Zerk and the Yang makes you feel okay because we haven't seen Vavalis yet. So, I mean, the best defense is just pure offense. And I think that's where Antidale's at right now.
More importantly, that final Palom is going to be Slingshot. Slingshotting is a mechanic that's kind of built in at this point in time. If you have a character that is 5 levels or more below the median of a full party of 5, then you effectively double your experience for the single fight until you're caught up in art outside of that 5-level range. When you're setting up a grind that's designed to get you more than 1 million experience, it results in some really high levels at this point.
Yep, and this is actually taken directly out of the vanilla speedrun, as it were. This is the same fight that they use to get levels in, I believe, you know, all of the US version speedruns. And Vitasia, maybe you'd like to explain what is so special about this particular searcher.
Oh, I'll be happy to explain as such. So, first of all, you have the beamers right there, which just cast a beam spell, which is a percentage-based attack on you. Oh, did Antidale, was that the wrong one?
It must have been.
Looks like he accidentally pulled up The wrong one, because that was the Mac Giant, right? Oh no, Centaurs.
That would have been Centaurs. The Mac Giant one doesn't spawn with anything in front of it.
Okay.
Pancras mentioning this in chat, someone maybe with a little better game knowledge than I have might be able to confirm this, but there is a belief amongst some runners that some of these stair tiles are actually not encounter tiles. And what that essentially means is if you were supposed to get an encounter when you hit a stair, then you wouldn't get that encounter, and instead you skip that encounter and you move on to the next encounter. So I can't confirm that. Pancras also pointed that out. That is why I just stay away from stairs. Maybe it's just superstition, but either way, it appears like Andy's back and set up and ready to go into that one more time.
He's got to reset up his party at this point. Oof. Anyway, back to the explanation. So, what makes the fight so special is, first of all, the beamers. Only cast beam, which is a percentage-based attack. Then you can smack the searcher, and he will summon, theoretically, a D-Machine, a dragon machine, who has weaknesses to lightning and everything, but that's not necessarily important. As long as you don't punch him, as long as you don't physically attack him to enable a counter script, every attack that the D-Machine will do, his fire spell in particular, is again a percentage-based attack based on your total HP for a particular party member. Which means you can take really low-level characters into it, and they won't kill him unless you just let him go ham with his fires. Luckily, he is weak to the weak spell, which we get very early on as long as you've unlocked Tella's full suite of spells on Mount Ordeals. Weak, smack with whatever character you want. Life glitch, sometimes double life glitch. Do that, between 6 to 12 times, depending on how everything else is set up. And cha-ching, you have lots of experience.
Yep, and so we are at sort of a dead race now, at least getting into this D-Machine. Antidale is ahead, having completed that Mom Bomb fight. But this Earth Crystal, I think this Earth Crystal is going to be interesting. Vitasia, you have a couple checks left on the overworld, including that Earth Crystal. You have Dwarf Castle, you have the top of the tower, as well as, well, the Earth Crystal, which I already mentioned. Then you have the moon, with all of its abundance of checks. Do you think our runners here are going to go for, the density of checks? Or would you be interested in just knocking out the rest of those locations before heading on up to the moon?
That's the age-old question in this tournament. Moon, for whatever reason, has been more haunted in the sense that it feels like through this tournament there hasn't been as much value available up on the moon as in previous tournaments. That said, you're only looking for one key item. You're looking for either the package or the adamant. So from a statistical perspective, right now you can do Dwarf Castle, Keyless Tower, and that's about it, right? Or an Earth Crystal, of course. So that's 3 checks versus, we're talking 2 in the ribbon check. Everything that's up on the moon. I think I'm going density at this point in time, when you only need 1, and it won't necessarily hurt you because as soon as you get it, you do eventually have to come back down to the Earth. So I think, my gosh, it's such a weird setup. And Antidale whiffed again. Oh no.
And Penguinator in chat did point out, evidently, the stairs superstition that was just brought up is not correct. Although I'm still going to believe it and not step on stairs, because that is 0 for 2 for Antidale, who I've raced against plenty. and no must be reeling right now from not having gotten this set up on 2 separate tries. That was step 4, I believe, which I think is a good one.
It feels a little bit disappointing at this point for Antidale because he's just been pedal to the metal. I mean, he's had a nice advantage through this entire run, really using, he got an early grind up on Mount Ordeals in order to get himself set up properly for the rest of the race. CoffeeAndChocobos has been, if we're being honest, kind of racing from behind. But it's kind of a disappointing spot right now for Antidale where, a couple of missteps in terms of setting up the grind has set him back this far. Not saying that he's out of it by any step, because again, CoffeeAndChocobos still has to do the Baron Basement, but it feels a lot tighter than it should be right now.
Yeah, this is the type of time that you really don't want to have to give back. You definitely, that someone like CoffeeAndChocobos, it can only conceivably be so far potentially behind you. So you want to get this manip set up. I will say, when you put this much pressure on yourself and you've been doing this well, something like not getting it set up right the first time would definitely throw me through a bit of a mental loop. So we'll have to see. We had some people checking the encounter step on this one. Hopefully he's got it set up here. But yeah, so CoffeeAndChocobos is caught up to a degree, but that Baron Basement is going to take 2 to 3 minutes. So we'll see where they're at, because that's where I assume CoffeeAndChocobos is headed after this.
We get a moment of appreciation for the mirrored screens at this point.
Back to back.
All right, so it does have it set up now.
And yep, using the bow with that Borum took an extra turn, I think maybe just to have the manip set upright. Used a dancing dagger on that first palom, I think just to get it around so Tella is the next one available. For, as straightforward as these grinds look, anybody who's been practicing these table seeds, I can certainly tell you there are all sorts of ways that these things can go south. Tella is not world-renowned for having a large amount of agility. Tella likes to let other people jump in front of him in the turn order. Just getting these things down and efficient is one of those things that is surprisingly complicated, because your party always looks slightly different every single time you go into one of these. But I think CNC might be wrapping up here without having a slingshot. You are going to have to do, I would guess, maybe 9 or 10 plus those life glitches that we discuss. There is the question, at least for Antidale right now, of are you going to try to get all of your paloms up to nuke right now? Maybe if you are feeling behind, you might cut it a little short and just take that one quake, head to the moon, and expect to get the rest of the levels there. So time will tell. I still have my eye on that Earth Crystal though, as just a curious case of will one of them make that check, and is that going to be the difference, either in giving go mode without having to go through those moon cutscenes, or is that going to just be the thing that stalls for just long enough for the other runner to take the lead?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and I think one that every person who's run this randomizer has had to ask themselves at some point. because there's absolutely advantages to both. So let's ask in chat, what are your guys' preference? If you were running this seed right now, Mooner or Blue Planet, which one would you choose?
And this is also one of those where, in a 1v1 race, if you think you're behind and you think your opponent has gone to the moon, maybe you stay on Earth. If, maybe you've scouted out your opponent and they know, they happen to typically full clear the Earth before going up to the moon. There is a lot of potential mental metagaming that goes into choices, particularly after you are through with this specific grind.
Absolutely. And I mean, these two runners have been watching each other many, many, many times throughout this tournament. We've done a lot of broadcasts. I think we were more than 200 broadcasts through this tournament at this point in time. So lots of opportunity for both Antidale and CoffeeAndChocobos to watch each other race, see their decision-making process, and try to make decisions kind of counterplaying each other at this point in time. That's some of the metagame that you don't see behind the scenes sometimes.
Yep, and Pancras asking in chat, the reason I'm intrigued by the Earth Crystal is it did come from taking that Asura fight, which one or the other might think, I might think, hey, maybe Antidale went and did that Sheila 1 check and faded that Asura, or Antidale's thinking the same with CoffeeAndChocobos. And given that they have both had, one or two missteps early game, Antidale was setting up this grind, it might be something that's on your mind as maybe this is sort of my lifeline check. If it turns out that I'm 2 minutes behind, I don't want to run the exact same route as my opponent just ran. But also all of that thinking is why, at this point in the tournament, you also don't want to end up with any strats, and this is why I love having Atella and a Demon Machine grind on the table. And Van Gopher, yeah, you're gonna have nuke. You're gonna have a triple shot of nuke. For Anti, you're going to have 2 nukes over on CoffeeAndChocobos sides. You're going to have a very beefed up Yang. And this is the part where your mind really starts racing as to, one of 2 key items is going to give you go mode right now. You have the pass in hand. This is when you really start to sweat.
It feels like that the next decision that they make is going to be the one that wins or loses them the race. And they feel it at this point in time. Everything's been relatively linear at this point in time. CoffeeAndChocobos, meanwhile, is finished. No slingshots, 800 some odd. Let's see, does he end up... Yeah, it does end up with nukes. Okay.
Yeah, I know CNC well enough to guess that they probably did the exact number necessary to get both of those black mages up to nuke white. Nice to have, not quite as important. You might end up having it, if you undershoot that, you might end up having it by the Z fight. But now that nuke is online, it is, it's time to microwave the rest of the seed.
Meanwhile, Antidale's going to spend a little bit longer. Keep in mind, this Deep Machine grind might be a little bit slower than other runners, other viewers have seen throughout this entire race. We are sub 10 key items. Remember, once we hit that 10 key item mark, we double the experience that's available out there. Without those 10 key items, it did intend to take things a little bit slower, but these guys are still off to the races, honestly, right now.
Yeah, and only having 7 to go do that grind, you don't feel too bad about skipping out. Given you only have 3 checks before you go up to the moon, we will see CNC. This is sort of the last check before it's really decision-making time for CNC. This is the Baron Basement is number 4. We know that it is not going to offer any progression, so after this Barren Basement, it's up to see where CNC goes. And right around that time, I think Antidale should also be getting back into the Lunar Whale and figuring out what their route is. And all things considered, I don't want to give anything away. I have a race tomorrow night. While we are wrapping up these similar things we did just have, there will be a rematch between these two over on RPG Limit Break at 8:30. At 9 p.m. over here on Free Enterprise. Dia and Possum Morpheus are going to be facing off in their first round. And myself, PK, and Flurry, FLURRY 14, if you've never heard of him, it's okay, I hadn't either. We will be racing on Randomania at 10 p.m. tomorrow night.
The disrespect.
That's how it's spelled. That's how it's spelled.
I feel like I need to be like a wrestling commentator. It's like, oh, Flurry, are you going to take that line down? Ooh, okay. Meanwhile, Antidale finishes up his grind at this point in time.
So this is going to be right about as even as it can be, given that time that Antidale essentially gave back almost the exact amount of time that Coffee and Chocobos had given up to Antidale leading up to getting into that grind. So number 4 now completed for Coffee and Chocobos. No key items there. Where are they going to go?
All right. I mean, Antidale's warping out. Yeah, these guys are going to be neck and neck. Ooh. Hold on to your butts, folks. This is what we like to call a race.
And CNC headed underground. I saw him take a save right there at Barren before making this play. Antidale landing the whale. Taking a nap. Where are you going, bud?
CNC doing keyless tower. This is a bold play. I mean, it's absolutely something that I wouldn't expect, but you're just doing 3 at this point. Antidale's going to the moon.
So we will have to see. I would imagine that given some of those early game troubles that we saw from CNC, this is in essence sort of a counter play against your opponent going to the moon. You do only need 1 key item. We haven't seen the pan. So there are some options here. We haven't seen tower key. You might find some things here that would let you chase anything else. But I just love Divergence because there are still 2 key items available for go mode. One of them could find both. One of them could find neither, or they could both end up with one and be racing to Zeromas from completely different locations.
Meanwhile, Antidale's getting his party set up, and he's doing Cave Bahamut first. Now, it's not the most efficient check, but it's the first one that we can get to. So I think he's also counterplaying here a little bit.
Yeah, if this were, I'm trying to think, Mario Kart, something like that. There's a ghost runner in both of their minds who's already down in the lunar subterranean completing it, and they are trying to metagame against where they think the other one is.
Oh! Hey, D-Mist. Okay, Sand Ruby was in the tower, so Coffee and Chocobos immediately resetting out and up in Barren, so it's probably going to go do Earth or Dwarf Castle probably at this point. D-Mist is interesting. Remember, once we kill the D-Mist, Rydia's mom is dead and will give us a key item as well.
Yep, and this is another one of those bosses where 3 little kids casting nuke is infinitely better than 1 Crystal Sword Cecil who is berserk.
Oh, and CoffeeAndChocobos is doing this now.
And yep, Nyx, this is about 40,000. It is surprisingly more than you might think, but typically runners only make it here after either completing all of the moon or having done a grind, so it usually looks like a lot less hit points because you typically put this one off until you know you can get through it. This spot has ridiculously strong physical attack, as you can see from this Demist here.
Gets through it though, right as CNC starts his Demist fight. And Antidale finds a staff. I mean, that's nice. Do you follow that Demus, or do you keep clearing up on the moon?
I'm going to take a save right here and go check that Demist. And then I'm going to reset right back here depending on if we have a reverse vanilla package. I don't know what it's called.
There's so much weird playstyle things that are coming into play right at the moment. Oh, I love it.
I noticed, I'm going to have to ask CoffeeAndChocobos about this, went to go underground, accidentally didn't hit the open area. When the Enterprise came back up, CoffeeAndChocobos just decided, nope, you know what, I'm going to go grab the Lunar Whale and head up to the moon. So I'm curious, you know, maybe it's one of those where you're in this position like, I don't know what check I should make, I don't know where my opponent is, what is going to happen, and that was not what anyone's looking for.
No, I think what I was hoping for the most was the pan there, honestly.
Well, we are still missing the pan. We're missing Luca, Tower Key. We are missing the Twin Harp. So there are some, Adventure Hunt key items still out there.
Absolutely. It couldn't be something simple. And I think that's when you start getting into the danger of it all. Like, how many chests do you abandon, or checks do you abandon up on the Earth if you end up finding things like the pan and the Twin Harp and the Luca Key? Things that could be hiding what you're looking for.
I don't think there's a right answer for that. I can say, given Antidale's routing decisions here, I'd be interested to see if you go immediately to that Murasame altar, because that Demus check, if you thought, cool, I'm going to get 2 key items out of this might have been a great metagame, going here instead of all the way down, and not getting anything, I can tell you that doesn't make you feel any more ahead, or you don't think you gained any time by accidentally doing that Demist, and it looks like headed straight down.
Yeah, the efficient check, you could do the Murasame altar, which is, I think, closer, but so far out of the way. Or you can come on down here to the bottom where there's 4 key item checks and 3 bosses.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what Antidale says. Typically, that the K Bahamut play is indicating that you want to go top down because you think your opponent made this dive first. But once you hit this, you're at the 130 mark in a race. No one's feeling comfortable until one or the other puts in a dot done. From having been in this position, I'm waiting and checking the screen to see if my opponent finishes while trying to make decisions and make checks, and it is a lot to try to put on your plate at one time. But here is the divergence within the divergence on the moon.
All right, so here it is. Meanwhile, Antidale finds, a free Bahamut available to us. at the ribbon spot. At this point, yeah, we're gonna nuke him down so fast, he's not gonna get anything off. Meanwhile, Coffee and Chocobos finds a very rude Golbez in that spot. I do like this play, though, casting Venom on himself. It's one of those heads-up plays that the hold spell that Golbez casts is not overwritten by Venom, effectively. It will not hold, so your party can still act. He's still going to get kills off, but at least you can act and get some Star Veils up quickly.
Yep, another interesting dynamic discovered in this game that was clearly intended by the game.
Clearly intended.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. They totally meant to do this, but there is a priority apparently to the various spells.
Meanwhile, Antidale gets through that Bahamut and finds, Twin Harp. Oh boy.
Could have been behind Earth Crystal this whole time. We now have Twin Harp Earth Crystal to check. We have not seen the Pan. The Pan could be holding both pieces of Goma behind either of those checks. This is not making Antidale feel any better, having only gotten the Twin Harp out of that.
No, it's not. And it comes back to that question, at what point do you say, I've done my checks and I jump?
I don't know. Only the Twin Harp. I'm probably committed to clearing this entire moon at this point. Knowing Luca Key's out there, Tower Key is out there, the Pan is out there somewhere. I don't feel good about it. I certainly don't feel good about the decision, but I'm probably committed to the moon.
No, I'm right there with you. And Mylan and friends goes down very quickly at the White Spear altar. So getting, again, those efficiency checks. Hey, there's a siren.
And another seed in another life. You'd love to get a siren on table flags, but not when you got 3 people casting there.
Luca Key behind Golbez.
So the chase might be on. CNC, this exit doesn't necessarily inform if CNC is going to go chase that. There is still Dwarf Castle, so you have 2 checks there. Nope, CNC's headed back into the fray.
Meanwhile, here is the Elements fight at the Masamune altar. This is another high damage spot. You will see the counter reflex going on because similar to Zeromus, there is kind of an HP refill counter script that does happen kind of midway through this fight in between the transition between Rubicante and Kenyadzo. So we're going to be seeing a lot of reflected nukes right now in order to dodge that HP refill script.
Yep, this is another vanilla strat that has been adopted by the free enterprise speedrunners. Jerson asking in chat about the hierarchy of status effects and how it impacts D-Lunar's breath. It's magic, but for some reason breath works. That's all I've got.
Hey, more Artemis arrows.
Perhaps... I'm sorry?
Exit. He exited out without doing the Crystal Sword check.
Well, mathematically speaking, okay. I think maybe leaves a save here, but that did... Oh, accidentally hit the wrong part of the ship. You have Twin Harp, you have Earth. You haven't done Dwarf, you haven't done Top of Tower. You only have 2 checks left on the moon. You have 4 potential checks now on the blue planet, so maybe making the switch. I mean, you both of these runners have to feel intensely in gamble mode right now.
Yeah, and there's always a degree of gambling when you're in any sort of randomizer speed run, but this is, you hate to be in a tournament race and it straight come down to a coin flip, and that's what it really feels like at this point.
Well, this is one of those positions where, hindsight is going to potentially be 2020, but we saw that top of tower play, we saw that Cape Bahamut play. If you feel like you're ahead or you feel like you haven't made any mistakes in the seed, you would typically see someone dive that lunar subterrane, and I think potentially either one, if they had made that play early, would potentially have taken the lead. So, getting in your own head, you're in the top 16. I think a lot of that, impacts your decision making. And we know that Antidale now is at least treading new ground with this twin harp check. Maybe you can explain what these shiny little objects are in the chat.
Absolutely. These are the twin harp. So we in the free enterprise community, we tend to like randomizers. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but we like to randomize things. We randomize just about everything we can. And then when we ran out of things that we could randomize normally, we said, hey, Edward's music that he uses to break the spell of the Dark Elf, it's pretty. Can we make it randomized? And that's absolutely what we happened. So we have a wonderful team of curators who have gotten together. There's all sorts of MIDI files that are out there that effectively have set things up to where this is going to be a randomized script here, and we're going to be quiet to let the harp music play. Now, the most important part about that fight was, of course, the music, and this transition ruins it.
Yep, and I did see Dathus had just very recently poked his head into the chat, so no surprise that we end up with this vanilla Dark Elf. But now the big question here is the reward.
I love it. I love it. It was the Castlevania. Let me see. What was it? Something from Castlevania.
I believe it's a Castlevania 2. I did not recall what the song was. This pan is so spicy, so I think we will see a save outside of Zot and an immediate check on this pan.
Yeah, that we have to see a save. Oh no, he's going right for it. Because I guess because it's right next door to where we end up anyway. I can see not wanting to waste the menuing. But yeah, that location is interesting because the Dark Elf spot originally has very, very high magic defense, honestly. So taking a party of mages under normal circumstances, even at higher levels, is a little bit difficult, but Nuke solves all.
nuke does solve all. I was thinking, what if we had Valvalis, but that Yang has been on the sidelines flexing his muscles for quite some time and probably wouldn't have had too much trouble with that.
Coffee and Chocobos is going to the crystal sword, but we have the adamant. Our shiny rock has been gotten, and that will allow us to forge the legend sword with adamant. Antidale is officially in go mode.
And how convenient that you're already down here with that forge in hand and the pass. I'm sure Antidale is still expecting, the potential done to come in from Coffee and Chocobos at any point, but this is a pretty streamlined path to Threemus.
Yep, at this point, CNC's only hope. I'm not going to say only hope, but if the package is here at the crystal sword spot, though, we have a race all over again.
Yeah, that would be basically the one key item we could find here that would give CNC the potential of getting into the Threemus fight at around the same time as Antidale, although the dwarf guards in Coal Shop are doing their best job to prevent Antidale from headed to...
That is right.
Oh.
Game on. Race is not over yet.
There is going to be a quick cutscene here. Antidale with, a slight edge headed into the Threemus fight, but that could not have been a better way for CNC to make up some of that time. Not going to have to do the Twin Harp, not going to have to forge and make those walks over into the Fey March. So get your Z flags out. There is, we've been waiting quite some time for this. And there's one last thing that's randomized.
Absolutely. We can't put Threemus out there with all the rest of the lowly bosses. I mean, we have to randomize, but we have to randomize something with him. So when his true colors are emerging, his true colors are randomized. Again, there's more than 400 sprites for Threemus for his true colors that could possibly revealed. Some of them are jokes. Some of them are from other video games. All of them are fantastic. As Tella is burning down the Mist Village, by the way. That's another thing that's randomized. So the question becomes, whose butt are we gonna kick tonight?
Yep, Crystal in hand. We have Yang in the back row, but I don't think we're gonna have to worry about Yang's damage output with this particular team. And I think the inputs are going to be pretty straightforward for the remainder of Antidale's race here.
Yeah, at this point, we pretty well know what Yang's job is going to be. He's going to be our reflect target. Threemus, though, his true colors are Gallimus?
Well, it is an adorable looking sprite. I'm sure Scala Kitty is here with the explanation. Galleon from Lunar. And CNC making his way into Threemus as well. We'll see if there is enough time. We are reflecting spells again. There's a little extra part of Threemus' script that both of these runners I think are going to be skipping here.
Yeah, Threemus again has one of those HP refills in the middle of his normal attacks, so that happens after quite a bit of damage though. So you do have to burn him down, but you can save a lot of time if you're using those reflect strats. So triple nukes on Antidale's side, yeah, this is going to go a little bit fast here.
Yeah, not too much to worry about. CNC, even with that one white caster, is going to have just a slightly slower time of this one. And this is going to make for an interesting interview, though. Both of them chose to do various versions of top-down. Antidale skipped that Crystal Sword altar. CNC decided to make that check. Both kind of tried to metagame off of one another. Both found go mode, but that Crystal Sword altar was out there. And one final thing, neither did Earth Crystal, and Earth Crystal could not vet go mode.
Meanwhile, all the nukes are being thrown again, being reflected off that Young. I gotta imagine Young is going to end up playing a little bit at Chemist right over here, throwing some cures out as needed.
Yep, and you know you have pretty decent levels on your team when you still have a Tella alive after even a nerf Big Bang. Maybe we'll see a virus from Tella, the rare virus reflect from Tella.
Wow, and he's gone. Not even a second Big Bang. GG's. Antidale with the win. Moving to, that wonderful neon light up Cecil. Fantastic. With one win out of the two. The rematch is coming tomorrow night. We'll see if Antidale is available for a quick interview.
Yep, we'll keep an eye out from Antidale. That puts you at 1-0 over Coffee and Chocobos. We are joined by Antidale. GG. How's your heart rate feeling right now?
I mean, it's had 15 minutes to settle down, so it's a lot better than it was, for sure.
So,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is one of those races that, you cruise through both the Queen spot and the Baron Inn spot relatively early, then had a little bit of trouble setting everything up with the D Machine. Can you kind of walk us through what was going on there?
I wish I knew what happened with the first one. I'll have to look back at the tape and see if maybe I forgot to reset in my haste, or if I didn't turn off the encounters fast enough and took an extra step somewhere, or if I just miscounted. But the first one was definitely a shock to see the Horseman, and then a little bit on tilt for the second one, having to redo the cutscene to get the whale. And so I had been counting in steps of 6 for some strange reason in the second one. I think I just totally miscounted. I think I was actually on step 24 instead of 26 like I thought I was. And then the third one, step 25, is awful. It's one of those choose your own adventure. There are 5 options, so that's just an instant reset for me.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I want to ask you about kind of 2 different decisions. What prompted you, after your grind, there were 2 major inflection points. I think what prompted you to go up to the moon immediately after, and then what prompted you to abandon the moon and abandon things like the Crystal Sword altar and then the Murasame altar as well?
I was feeling kind of behind with that grind start, and I wasn't sure whether Coffee and Chocobos would have had a different way of getting through the Negasisters, or if he might have gotten through them more cleanly than I did, with my grind up to Virus before really taking them on. So it was a definite densities on the moon, and then you see Demas there, and you're like, cool, we can do this and chase it, and then you get nothing out of it, so then you go to the bottom, and you're in pretty hard gamble mode. I almost immediately took that Twin Heart to go, but it was a little bit too much to gamble on leaving that much of the moon left. But then I didn't, I could always reset back to my save point there in the lunar subterranean if the Twin Heart and Earth Crystal don't pay out. And I don't really lose a lot of walking time or anything else other than just the time set for flying back once extra time.
That Earth Crystal had been left hanging by both of you for you know, a long time in that seed. Obviously, you know, it's not a quick check to make, but was that looming over your decision-making process? Like when you're up on the moon, when that D-Mist doesn't play out, you know, are you thinking, you know, what about Earth Crystal? What about Dwarf?
Earth Crystal was next after Harp, if Harp didn't pay out, because it's an unattractive enough check, and I'm feeling behind that I feel like CoffeeAndChocobos might also fade that, or maybe even not pick it up, because Asura and Leviathan isn't fast at the level especially I did it at. So I almost followed up right away on that just because it was fast, but I hate that check. So, and I knew I didn't need any characters. Like my party was set mentally, and so I really didn't want to go do it.
Well, you guys are back at it again. You're scheduled for tomorrow as well.
Yep. Same bat time, same bat channel. Well, maybe not the same bat channel, but definitely same bat time, same bat runners. And when I came into this, I felt like we're probably a coin flip between the two of us, and it's going to come down to routing choices. And it sure sounds like it mostly happened that way tonight, especially as we talked about a little bit in the restream. So hopefully we have another good close match tomorrow.
No, absolutely. And GG's to you. You know, and just a fantastic race run all around, just very technically proficient and really put on a clinic here.
Thank you.
And yes, CNC did wrap up. In the meantime, just over 2 minutes behind. Yeah, your routing choices certainly had a huge difference. I mean, it looked like both of you post-grind were, you know, kind of scrambling, trying to figure out where you thought the other one was relatively.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, especially when you, like, I was so uncertain about whether I should grind before going to do that Mom Bomb, too. Like, I knew I could take the Mom Bomb, but, like, in retrospect, it probably would have been a little bit better just to go grind, get nuke, and then it's a lot faster.
Yeah, I was curious about that as well. You got through it. You know, nuke would have saved some time, but it felt almost negligible with how comfortably you got through that. Had the big bombs come, you know, had you had to eat the explode and the big bombs come out, I think it, you know, would have been more noticeable.
Yeah, it's a lot riskier at that point, but still. But I know CoffeeAndChocobos has a little bit of a hard stop at a certain time at night, so I kind of want to dip out. But thanks, PK and Batasia, for doing comms. Aegis for the tracking first time, and of course Blaze for rolling us that seed and doing the restream.
All right, and thank you, Antidale, for letting us watch. And I believe CoffeeAndChocobos is here as well. And we are joined by CoffeeAndChocobos. GG. Maybe not exactly how you wanted it to go, but how do you feel about, you know, having gotten to the end of that kind of brutal run?
Thanks for the GGs, and I mean, I feel okay. It's obviously a little bit disappointing to take a loss there, but that was a little bit of a tricky seed. I'm more regretful at a couple of what is obviously in hindsight a few poor decisions to hold on to that hourglass at the Baron Inn and try to cheese my way through it, and just getting punched out, getting my key characters punched out that could have cheesed that fight for me, and then taking a look at that D-Mist item before diving the rest of the moon, and then once that turned out to be nothing, taking more of a pincer approach to the moon, doing the top down to all the way down to the bottom and ending at the crystal altar, which ended up being go mode for me.
Yeah, one or two routing choices would have been interesting. You know, you did the no-key tower, which I thought was an interesting play. When you got done with your grind, did you just think that you were perhaps, you know, needed to take at least one swing at something before you went up to the moon?
Well, I wanted to take out the things that were basic checks without any cutscenes. Like, I didn't want to chase that Earth Crystal for a key item that didn't reward me with anything else. There was no Rosa to give exit to. My party was full. and I didn't want to go to Dwarf Castle and end up in that same quagmire. I figured I could buzzsaw through the top of the tower, reset out of it real quick, and then go on to picking at the moon after that.
Fair enough. I'll pass it to Vitasia after this, but I have one more question. After you reset out of the top of the tower, it looked like you were going to go back underground to Dwarf. You attempted to land the ship to go underground. It bounced off the side, and then you just headed right on over to the Lunar Whale. Was that just sort of like, maybe I should just go up to the moon?
Yeah. I thought for a split second I was going to go and do Dwarf Castle, just kind of a 50-50, may as well. But then after I bounced off, I thought, let's just turn around and do the moon, which turned out to be the right play, but a couple seconds lost.
Yep.
I'm mostly curious about your party comp. You ended up solidifying your party, I think, quite a bit earlier than Antidale did, and even relatively early for this entire flag set. Were you just happy with the party as you came across them? It's like, well, here we go, or what was your thought process there?
Yeah, that's kind of the ideal do everything party, to have a Tella, one melee fighter, 2 black mages, and 1 white mage, because it gives you an option to do something with a melee if you run into, say, a Val in a bad spot, and it gives the optimal rotation for reflect strats at Threemus without having to heal and do a quick nerf. As you saw, you can throw that nerf with the melee character, and then Tella's on standby to either cure for whoever gets nuked or take the nuke himself.
Yeah. I mean, that was incredibly close, between the two of you. Sort of 1 or 2 fights early on for you, and then Anti with 90 seconds of trouble getting the manip set up correctly for the D machine, and you were both basically neck and neck after your grinds, which is exactly what I expected from both of you. We know you're back on tomorrow. Any final thoughts? Any ideas for when we tune back in tomorrow?
Not a lot. Just hang on to your seats for another exciting close match. I figure we're pretty evenly matched. We go back and forth with the Massidian Jump Club races, and it's fun to do the tournament races and be just as close of a matchup. And I mean, even though it was a loss, I'm having a good time here. And however it turns out, it's going to be really good watching tomorrow. So tune in.
Absolutely. And one last shout out to both Coffee and Chocobos and Antidale putting on a great race. The rematch, the grudge match tomorrow, will be over on RPG Limit Break. I think that's going to wrap it up for us here at Free Enterprise. I do want to give one last shout out to our behind the scenes team. I believe it was Moonblaze Wolf who did our rolling for this one?
Yep, Moonblaze Wolf, as always, with a fantastic seed on the restream, and Aegis, first time tracker, got all the buttons right as far as I can tell, so great job to Aegis as well.
Absolutely. Big shout out to the whole team, and of course it's always a pleasure working with you, PK. Good luck to you in the tournament as well. I'm on the sidelines, but I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Vitasia, always a pleasure. And I believe we have a raid target in store. We are headed off to Asuka, who Moonblaze Wolf rolled quite the seed for our runners today. Asuka has a reputation of doing something very similar, so we will send you off over there. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and yeah, we have plenty more to come. This was the opening night of the top 16.
Absolutely. Everyone has a great rest of your night, and we'll see you at the next race.